ounces of whole wheat flour, and I'm going to add a teaspoon of yeast. And I'm going to add 9 fluid ounces, which is about a cup and 2 tablespoons of warm water. Just going to mix this smooth. This will give the flour a chance to absorb the liquid. With whole wheat flour, it's good to give a little extra time for the liquid to get absorbed, and that's why I'm making a sponge. We're going to set this aside and let it rise, and then we're going to finish our dough. We'll just cover this and let it rest for about 30 minutes to an hour. When you lift it up, it should be nice and foamy underneath, which this is. You can see it's deflating as I stir it. So this is ready. We can add the rest of our ingredients. We're going to add a teaspoon of kosher salt and 2 teaspoons of olive oil. I'm using extra virgin olive oil. And then I'm just using bread flour here, 6 ounces. Mix this as much as possible with a spoon, and then I'll begin kneading it. The more you mix it in the bowl, the easier it is to knead later, and it's a little less sticky on your hands. If I feel like this is too wet, I can add a little extra flour. If I feel that it's going to be too dry, I can add a little extra water. And that's best to do early in the mixing process. I think this is going to be pretty good. The dough is all sticking together, and it feels pretty good. So I think I don't need to add anything else. Get everything mixed up, and now I'll start to knead. Just gather this all together. I didn't put any extra flour on the table because I still have some dry bits of dough here to pick up. If it starts to stick to the counter, I can add a little extra flour. But I don't want to add too much if I don't have to, because it can make my dough dry. It's starting to get a little sticky as I knead it, as it's picking up all the pieces. So it feels a little sticky right now. I'm just going to add a little flour to my kneading surface. Now we're making enough dough here for just 1 sheet pan pizza. So it's pretty small, easy to knead piece of dough. And I'm just going to knead by pushing the heel of my hand on the dough back and forth until the dough feels nice and smooth and somewhat extensible. I've been kneading for about 3 minutes now, so this is just a couple more minutes and we'll be done. This dough is sort of sticky. You can see the dough is sticking to my hands. Don't worry about it. It's just the nature of whole wheat flour. So if it's too sticky, just add a little more flour as you go, very little. Alright, I've vigorously kneaded this dough for 5 minutes. It's ready. So I'm just going to round it up, which helps give a nice surface to contain the carbon dioxide produced by the yeast. And we're going to place it back in the bowl that we used earlier and let it rise again. In the winter, my kitchen is kind of cool, so I'm going to place my bowl with my dough to rise in a warm water bath, so that it gives it a nice, warm, cozy environment to grow in. We'll let our dough rise until it's about double in size. It should take about an hour. The dough's been rising for an hour. Let's see how it is. You can see it's puffed up quite a bit. You just see it, the dough stays indented when I push my finger down on it. It does. It's a little sticky, and whole wheat pizza dough will be a little stickier than regular. In whole wheat flour, we have the whole wheat kernel ground up, and so you have bran in there, and that actually cuts through the gluten that we formed in there. So that's one of the reasons that it's a little trickier making a good whole wheat pizza dough. I replenished this water once while it was rising so that it would still be nice and warm. So we'll get rid of this now. Make Make sure my counter's dry. I'm just going to take this dough out and reshape it so that it will be perfect for making our pizza dough. Now you might be tempted to use this dough right now and press it into your pan, but it will be better if we give it a shaping and then let it rest until it's risen a little bit and extensible. So I'm just going to coat this with a little flour and set it aside. Keep it covered so it doesn't dry out. And in about 15 or 30 minutes this should be ready. It's been about 35 minutes or so since we put this aside, and you can see that the indentation stays and it's nice and light, and it should be ready to work with. I'm just going to flour it a little bit because the dough is a little sticky, just to handle it. I'm going to start stretching it out before I put it on my tray with my fingers. Alright, open that up a little bit. Now I'm going to put some oil on my tray. And place my dough on here. I'm going to turn it around on both sides so I get a little oil on both sides of the dough. And I'm just going to stretch this to fit the pan. If you don't let this dough rest like we did, it'd be very hard to stretch out. Alright, so here we are. Now if you'd like to do this on a peel